my victory so clear. It's a day we break through. It's a day we break through. It's a day.
We've been talking about the future of work, and the future of work is here. Part of what Co-Elevation was created to do was to combat the ills of the current word collaboration. Collaboration is pretty meaningless today. Collaboration usually means I'm gonna pretty much figure out what I wanna do, and I'm gonna go get buy-in for it within the organization or within a group of individuals. That's like a bake and ship kind of ideas. You know, the reality is that real collaboration is genius when it co-creates something extraordinary, where a group of individuals got something significantly better than they would have alone. I think there are just new rules we need for that act of co-creation live. The world of transformation requires the following. It needs radical inclusion. What I mean by that is it needs more people having more ideas, more vibrancy, more life, more diversity, radical inclusion plus bold inputs, more candor, more truth-telling, more debate, more wrestling, plus iteration, agility, iteration, sprints, things that we come up with an idea, we figure it out, we go to the next level. It's agile, it's not stuck, maintained, and long-term sequential. So it's radical inclusion plus bold input plus iteration equals the possibility of you being transformative. So for you to be a transformational leader, for you to be a co-creating leader, you've got to be able to walk into a room and redesign and reboot and recontract the way a group of individuals have traditionally collaborated and get them to truly co-create for extraordinary outcomes. Now, let me give you a set of tips that I think would be really powerful. The first thing is let's be conscious about this. Let's start by recognizing that the group of people in a room are well-intended. You've opened porosity and invited them in, and I say a group of people. This could be just two people, you and one other individual, Zena and Devin at the beginning, or Sandy and Jane, or me and Pat, or whoever it is. It could be a dyad, but over time it might be more individuals. But the first thing you should do is you should have an open recontracting, an open dialogue that says the way we've worked in the past is not going to be how we're going to be successful now. The way we worked in the past needs to be rebooted. Let's make some agreements on how we're going to work together differently. And you might just ask that person, hypothetically, how have you seen collaborative efforts that have failed or been milquetoast or lackluster? How have you seen them get derailed in the past? What are the things that we do around here that seem to fail? And I would hear a lot of people say things like, well, conflict avoidance. We don't say what we're really thinking in meetings, or we have meetings are too big and everybody sits around and is talked at. And so you list those things down of all the things that failures in the past have created and what have gone into those failures. And then you recontract new rules around them. Here are some of the most important new rules that I believe you need to recontract specifically and definitively. Number one, make candor compulsory. Make sure that people speak their mind. Make sure that people are able to say truth to power. Make sure that nobody is deferential. Make sure that everybody is bold, that everybody has an ability to speak. And you can just say out loud, we're gonna celebrate this. We're gonna focus on this. I always joke in my coaching of executive teams, we have a safe word where if somebody wants to say something bold, they say Yoda in the room. Yoda, that little green fuzzy character? That little green fuzzy character is so perfectly wise that you want to hear everything that character says. I believe that wisdom of Yoda exists in every team, just not in every individual. So if an individual wants to take a risk in a room, they just say Yoda in the room. You can say whatever you want as your word, a safe word, to have everybody pause and say someone's about to take a risk. But the risk of taking candor is so critical. So the second thing is large group problem solving is very difficult. I would say that you need to take small group problem solving and make that the way in which you're going to get real richness. If you've got more than 5 or 6 people in a room, you're not going to hear everyone's voice. If you have more than 5 or 6 people in a room, you're going to hear not more than 1 or 2 voices. the way you go about getting the kind of power of voice and inclusion and ideas and innovation and boldness, all of those things and truth-telling is through small groups. So you take a group of 6 folks and you break them down into 2 groups of 3. I love the power of 3. With 3 individuals, everybody gets heard, right? With 3 individuals, there's real vigor and accountability with those 3 individuals. So break your group down into 3s. Give them the question at hand. Whatever the question is that you're trying to achieve in this collaborative meeting, whatever it happens to be, break them into groups of 3 and pose the question. Be very thoughtful of what the question is, because that question, how can we reinvent inventory in the ER so that we are never running to the next division to try to find something? That's a very big question, right? You can break that down into smaller questions, but the whole idea is to use small group to have the dialogue and then come back. What will have happened in that small group is those 3 individuals will have come up with a breakthrough idea of some sort. They've done the analysis. You've squeezed all the insight on this question out of those 3 individuals. And then when they report back, they will report back with courage. Courage that they wouldn't have had in the big room. Why? Because the social contract that occurs in a small group is that they have been bold or more bold than they would have been in a big group. And then when they report back, they don't want to look like cowards. So they'll have more courage when they report back, and you will get more candor. The next thing is I want you to cultivate curiosity of all types. I want you to say at the beginning of this group of individuals, we are going to set a standard for innovation. Here's our standard for innovation, and we're not going to do anything that falls short of that. We're going to have a breakthrough solution, and every once in a while, we're going to say, are we meeting the standard for transformation that we're hoping to meet in this effort? Are we really breaking through, right? Are we curious enough? We should always be leaning in and saying, are we curious enough and are we being bold enough? And periodically just pause the meeting and ask the question, is this conversation curious enough? Is it bold enough? Are we cultivating that? And I would even say as far as, you should be beginning to cultivate and celebrate when people have changed their minds. Nothing worse to a team when you come into a room with your mind set and you argue your point of view for the whole time. Everybody falls into that trap of then defending themselves, defending their points of view. The way we should be doing is we should be walking into a room curious and excited to be met wrong. We should be curious and excited to have our ideas challenged enough that we change our point of view. And as soon as someone changes their point of view, you should celebrate the heck out of them and celebrate the heck out of that action so that other people will continue to be curious and push the boundaries of changing your mind and celebration. It's really important as well that you have an open conversation of what happens when you have a disagreement. What do you do? Because that sometimes when you have a disagreement is where the worst and most divisive behaviors occur. The kind of behaviors where people are talking behind each other's backs, where they're lobbying to the boss behind each other's backs, where they're not staying a cohesive, co-elevating team committed to the mission in each other, where they break ranks and they start lobbying behind each other. And that kind of erosion of the emotional commitment is a death knell. So talk about it. If this is what you see happen, say to the group, hey, this is what happens around here. So as a result, we're going to do it differently going forward. Look, it used to be that collaboration was what you did when you had to. Now collaboration, co-creation, co-elevation, elevation around inclusive ideas, bold ideas, iteratively sprinting toward those ideas. This has to be the mainstay of work. It's a new way of thinking. It's a new way of acting. It's a new mindset turned into new practices. And you need to begin to be this leader. Listen to this again. Think about recontracting. That's the takeaway for this video. How will you verbally and clearly recontract with the most important people you're working with on a new set of behaviors that will be behaviors that will meet transformation, behaviors that will leave the bullshit excuses in the past. Leave those old behaviors on the table, recontract and discuss about them, come up with a new set, and then constantly be transparent. Call Yoda in the room, raise your hand when people are violating it. You know people are gonna violate these rules. It's all good, we're just human, a lot of forgiveness, but make sure that you reinvent collaboration and just make it real. Take it to another level.